And I'll take that as a yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Bruhnke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber from Mount Kisco, New York, which is right down the street from the pre-recorded conversation where one of our speakers, Lon Sofko, the pride of Ossining, New York, very adjacent town, Westchester County, Bear Mountain, West Point, just north of New York City. It's really one of the most extraordinary places to live in the world. And I wish I could live there as long as it had Arizona weather, but alas, what are you going to do? So hence I spend my times in Arizona and California and hang out with really amazing people like the speakers we have today. There are three extraordinary authors who are going to be talking about their book and their journey and sharing insights. We have other people who will be sharing their updates in terms of their book and what's going on. So I'm really excited by today's program. I would love to start with Manoj Gurshani first, because his book, I think, is the newest one. And I've been watching him out in public, introducing it to people. I've watched the launch on an India website first. I think, Manoj, the book is now available on Amazon, but let us know how that transition has been going. It definitely launched in India first, then transitioned then to be able to access it globally. What I love about the book is that it documents very mindful connecting, which is very consistent with the Global Chamber and the Global Tribe and how we think and how we act and how we believe we add value to the world. You took that information and you lived that information, and then you decided to then document that information for others to learn. So thank you for being such a tremendous role model for all of us. And then not just being a role model, but then taking it into and putting it into a package, putting it into a book so that we can all could benefit, which is the amazing value that every book author has. You don't need to share, but you did, and you actually did it really well. So Manoj, thank you so much. What would you like to share today about your inspiration, how your journey has gone, and the book, which is just really extraordinary?
Thank you, Doug. I wish I could get you to introduce every time I'm doing something. You did such a beautiful job. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the people who have come here and to the rest of the authors. So Doug, as you mentioned, the book, which Connie also has kept, this book, The Human Connect, I've used the word, so I will just share with, I've used the word human connect and not networking, though it is essentially about networking. So what I realized while I was researching a lot of topics on networking, scouts through Amazon, every other thing, most of the books, and many of them have done a great job, are only talking about networking from a transactional standpoint, and nothing wrong with that. It's like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And so depending on various phases of our lives, we all do our hustling of our life and go through our stages, and probably each thing is appropriate at that time. But what I realized is, and that reminds me of my favorite quote of Saint Francis of Assisi, it's in giving that we receive. It's very simple, fundamental, but I realize in today's world, when 95%, and again, I'm not being judgmental, the world is, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, what's in it for me principle. And there are a couple of points, people, percentage, who decide, okay, when I meet somebody, instead of, so changing the lens is my essence of the book. So a couple of things I have tried to, it's I live what I mentioned in the book. I practice that on a day-to-day basis, number one. Two, I've realized that there are various aspects which when we meet somebody, it is like moment we change our lens and saying, how can we be of help to that individual, whether it's a business, professional, or personal, family need. But you cannot fake it. It has to be that insight change. Moment you have that change, you'll become a more effective listener. So when we meet somebody, we'll listen more carefully rather than being the center of attraction. And when you listen more carefully, then you pick up tips on what that person is telling you. Everybody has a story to tell, and he's telling you something about himself or his challenges or whatever else it is. And if you can pick that up and then without committing over the next couple of days or whatever, respond back to that person. You told me about an internship you required for your daughter or a medical advice, and revert back with a short message. This is a link, or I know somebody I could introduce you to. I think you're creating that, you're humanizing the relationship. And the moment you humanize the relationship, you're cutting the clutter, you're cutting the entire, cloud, and you will become, I always say the word, the human magnet. But we have to practice that. And the moment we start looking at that, and of course that means body language, eye contact. When you're speaking to that person, don't get distracted, which I mentioned in the book. You don't have to keep looking at a mobile phone while speaking to somebody. Do not get disrespectful, which is happening now with the again, social world we live in and the screens we are surrounded by in today's life. I'm not blaming anybody. It's a conscious awareness. It's like when anybody goes through social anxiety of time, you need to be aware before you spiral into a depression or something, and stop there. So similar way, if there is a consciousness available, that when you're meeting somebody, you're there to give. And trust me, it comes back. And so people say, oh, that's a great philosophy, but doesn't work. But I say, don't look at quick return. Today, so I'll give you an example. Today I was speaking to a large pharmaceutical chairman of a pharmaceutical company. He said, I read your book, all that. But he said, I'll tell you how people want returns. He said, I met a guy just 1 week back, and today he's not even built a relationship with me. And today he sent me a proposal asking for a donation for a worthy cause. He said, I'm not questioning the cause, but he's asking for a favor before he's built a relationship. So I think he is building a relationship, building the human connect, and how we make people feel. We, all of us are human beings first. How you make a person feel. So all that factors, I bundled it in that. And the moment you change your lens, and again repeat, the magic happens. So I'll pause here. I can go on, and it's about listening, talking, body language, and etc. That, and another aspect of visiting cards. And I will tell you, I have lots of stories, but I'll just restrict to one. In a world of visiting cards, we generally just go out and and I have seen. So I was in a dinner 3 days back with one of the German, he's working with the German Bundesbank, and he had his birthday, and Thomas is his name. And I was sitting with him, and he had called a few people. He said, he knew about my book. He said, Manoj, the challenge is, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. I don't even know the man. He's interrupting my conversation, giving me a visiting card, and doesn't even talk to me. And he should have waited, started a conversation, then given a visiting card. Then he said, I literally, I have two pockets. The back pocket where I throw away all the visiting cards which are given to me just like that, and the other one which I spare because it has made an impact. So there is a separate conversation we could have about visiting cards. So in India, what we do is we find a connect and somebody you engage with, then they usually, now we share our mobile numbers and say, okay, and then WhatsApp each other and staying in touch, and probably follow up at the LinkedIn, follow up with a LinkedIn message if it's business, or Facebook if it's personal. So I think if we adapt these kind of things in our day-to-day lives, trust me, we all know there is no 7 degrees of separation. It's 2 degrees or 1 degree of separation. Then if you invest, stay in touch, nurture the relationship, anything can be achieved by these simple acts, and you have to simplify it. So I'll pause here.
Amazing. So I'm going to come to each of the authors and ask them their inspiration like Manoj just did, and then a little bit of the technical next steps in terms of getting the book out and their reaction. And I'm going to follow up, Manoj, on the second piece with you right now, but I also just want to take a step back and say each of the other authors will have this opportunity, and there'll be time for questions. And so if you have questions, and certainly feel free to put them in the chat area. Put your information in the chat area if you'd like. That's more than okay. And raise your hand. That's another way for me to notice that you're out there and you like to speak. I will probably at some point say, are there any questions, and allow you to unmute, but that might be a race to the microphone, if you will. So if you have something already, feel free to raise your hand. The second question I had for you, Manoj, was more related to when did these epiphanies come to you? And then tell us, what was then the transition of actually creating a book from it? And then what's the next step with all that?
So there are several times epiphany, right from under a shower to various other places, one gets those kind of, messages. So, and I felt that during COVID time, when I had the time and when the world was at a standstill and we were in a virtual, just doing virtual meetings, I realized, and my daughter told me that you've been thinking about experiencing or rather sharing your experiences of this journey of networking, as you say, or human relationship and etc. Why don't you document it in that format? So then I started writing, rewriting, and that's how it came in. And whenever I used to, during my journey of learning, I used to document my stories in my notes, so that I packed the stories there, and then I started collating it all together, and then rehashed it, edited it further and further, and so that's how it came out in a form of a book. My next step clearly is after the book, and it's been received well, and the key mention for those who have read it is that it's simplified. You're not complicated it. You have kept 19 chapters, each chapter not more than 4 pages, with a key takeaway, because in today's time less is more and nobody wants to listen to too much blah blah. So that's one. And the second is, my next step is I started doing podcast, because what we realize is podcasting, people have less time to read, but while they're driving or they're jogging or whatever, listening to podcasts are more effective. So I'm adapting that. And my next thing is, hopefully I'm engaging and hopefully become a TED speaker, be a TED speaker on this subject. And I'm already doing a book release and a speaker circuit in various universities and colleges, etc., and corporates to talk about and share about this subject.
Amazing. Is the book available outside of India?
Yeah, so on Amazon, it's available in the Kindle version, so it's easier for anybody to just click it and download it throughout India, throughout the world.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have any questions for Manoj? I saw your chat note, Dana, that this is something that's a really great fit for certainly our community, right? And I think it's just a great fit. It also seems like a great potential application, like a Human Connect app that we could use, because isn't part of the magic of this is you have to remember, right? You have to, the listening part is hard. And then where do you put the information to remember all of these things for different people? And then, 3 weeks later, something else will happen that will remind you that, oh, that person who needed such and such, who was it anyway? Isn't that better maybe done in an app? Or what were your thoughts around that?
So are you talking from an app perspective, Doug, the question to me? Yes, I am trying to put it in an app and actually start a conversation around the Human Connect stories. So it could be just a regular guy making a old person or a blind person hold his hand across the road. For me, that's the Human Connect. It's for a child looking after his mother. It's for a businessman, looking after his colleagues. So I want to build the Human Connect stories as a movement itself. So I want people to share their Human Connect stories. For example, I wanted to be part of some speaker circuits. A young guy in his early teens, he said, listen, I'll get you in a podcast. I want to without any agenda, he used that same formula on me and saying, listen, and I would want you to be part of a podcast. And he did everything for me. Till the time it came to me in the last few weeks, I said, what can I do for you? So practicing human connect, and so there are some organized. There is a movement in Mumbai called the Humans of Mumbai, where they share stories of different feats where average, ordinary human beings. So I want to do a similar movement globally on human connect. It could be anyone, could be connecting for thinking out of the beyond their means and whatever. And that is where I want to lead it to in terms of a movement.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. What do you think, Dana? What do you think of the overall idea and what to do next?
I really appreciate your presentation around your book and the book itself, Manoj, and because the listening aspect of networking is key, the relationship is key, and we really need to highlight that. And I like the next for you with the speaker's kit, and the app, I kind of thought it was funny that we're going to have an app for Human Connect because digital is really one thing that has, I think, caused more of a disconnect in some regards in terms of the humane side, but we can reach further, of course, on the digital application side. So that sounds like it's a great next step. And of course, your book is also a gateway to speaking engagements. So the podcast is huge, and we'd like to just see what comes next. We're going to utilize your book at our networking event next week. I'm going to download, actually, someone got the hard copy from Amazon, so I'm going to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Necole Turner, and Dana, I'm wondering, would you like to say a few words about Necole? Because you've seen the journey that she's been on in getting the book out.
Oh my, I'm going to do my best to condense it, because whenever I want to speak about Necole and the impact that she has on not just my life, but many lives, it's tremendous. First of all, she is a woman of God, and she's definitely a strong businesswoman and a professor at the Kennesaw State University. She's our deputy director for Global Chamber Atlanta. She's doing phenomenal work in our metro on the young global leader side, on the university side, and this is one of her, I think, I have two of her books. So she may be coming out with another one, and she's also one of our speakers at our Transformational Writers Conference in Puerto Rico, and she's been on with us from the inception, and I can't say enough about her. We just need 10 more Necole. So here you are.
What do you think about that, Necole? That's quite a testimonial. Congratulations on your success.
It is quite a testimonial.
Tell us a little bit about your latest book and what you'd like to share about that, please.
The latest book is really about when during lockdown and COVID and how we all had a time to reflect. And it's really an extension of the human element and examining human relationships from the personal side. And a lot of time spent in my meditation and just figuring out the number one thing that I really was meditating on is things that I can do without, things that I can live without to help make the human connection with other people and relationships a little bit better, which is an extension of the 2015 book. I have my first book that I wrote, which is Reflections of the Butterfly, Affirmations for Empowerment. And that book was really born out of the failed friendships that I had and how to take a look introspectively and really figure out why I was not making lasting human connections. And it's really born from just that frustration and taking a look at how I viewed myself. And so just really from the inner reflection and doing those types of really self-looks to really figure out exactly how I was going to move forward in life to make better friendships with other individuals. And so in just the writing in general, because I know you are asking Manoj about how his process in writing and just how that really took part. The first book was really born out of journaling. Every day I make it a point to get up and write in the journal my thought for the day and just really things that I wanted to accomplish for the day. And journaling really helped me get those thoughts on paper. And really from the journals, it was really 10 years of journals. And if you can think about 10 years of journaling turned into a book that was really written in a 3 to 4 month time frame, it was really a very condensed writing phase. And so getting all of those things out was really a challenge. But just a couple of things about the 2015 book. I was really trying to help myself understand the complicated dynamic of friendships and really peer-to-peer friendships among women. And the second thing is really taking an insightful look into those friendships and how to make more deeper and lasting connections with individuals. And thirdly, just really inner reflection and taking a look at some hard things about myself that I needed to change. And then fourthly is just giving others and empowering others within that information in order to help them in their friendships. So it's 10 chapters, 10 years on this journey born out of journaling. And when we talk about the butterfly, it's really about change. It's really about transformation, and it's really about empowering yourself to make that change. And so that is something that I challenge myself with. That is something that I take in challenging my students with. And that is something that I like to bring to the Global Chamber when we're talking about the young global leaders.
How are you now taking that and leveraging it into the next step? I presume there's a business component to this that has a revenue component that you're speaking, I
Yes.
believe. And so tell us a little bit more about kind of the business aspects of what the next steps are. Because on the one hand, you're empowering people to be successful in business, but you're also, to be sustainable, you need to have revenue coming in, or would like to have revenue coming in so you can sustain and write your next books.
Absolutely, because when you think about relationships, and I think Manoj talked about this too, when you're meeting people and you're trying to do business with people, the first thing that you need to do is establish that personal relationship. Just can't go in asking someone for money or to donate to a cause if you don't establish that personal relationship. So how I started to monetize that was on the speaking circuit, and I spoke with colleges and I spoke with universities and did speaking engagements with corporations, a couple of corporations here in the Metro Atlanta area. One was Kroger Company, the other was Aspire Television, and their training sessions and how to find out the color of your personality is called color code, to really establish those connections with individuals. And moving from the speaking circuit onto establishing a podcast. And the podcast that I currently have is an audio format, and it is in video format on the Everyday TV network. And it's really about an extension of the book. The podcast is called The Beautiful Butterfly Project. And it's bringing people on who have had opportunities in life where they haven't been perfect. And the tagline entering the podcast is, "It's okay to be a mess, as long as we don't stay a mess." And we don't stay a mess with a little help from our friends and working on those connections that we have with one another, and learning from our journeys in our personal life, learning from our journeys in our professional life, and how we can help others. And the whole premise of the Beautiful Butterfly Project, the podcast, is we share our stories to empower others and give others the courage to share their own. And so that's how I'm monetizing it.
It's okay to be a mess. That was
It's okay to be a mess.
I took out of all of that, and as long as you don't stay that way.
As long as you don't stay that way, right? And it's all about change. It's all about transformation, and it is all about effectuating that change in all aspects of life.
Yes, I'm actually holding up Nicole's other book, since this is the month of the women. This is Strategic Principles for Women in Leadership. So
Wow.
here's her other book, and you can also get that online. She's going to say I'm her promoter, but this is what someone who really believes in you does.
You are parked, aren't you? You're not driving.
I'm parked. Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. Well, where do I go on a segue now to Lon Safko? Because the first two speakers, both of you are so human connect. And maybe the connection here is that what Lon has spent a whole lifetime in doing is getting humans connected to technology and innovation. And his 24 books, most of them, all of them, you can look at them and say, well, they're about innovation and technology, but really it's about people connecting to technology to make their lives better. And so, Juan, thank you for your interest and your passion. And similar to the other writers, they have something that they discovered. You've discovered things in your life, and you are prolific in terms of getting this out. 24 books over the years, and I'm undoubtedly number 25 plus is in the works already. One of the most significant books of my life that Lon wrote was called The Social Media Bible, which was what, 800 pages, which talk about prolific. Not only 24 books, but over 800 pages, which included interviews of all sorts of, like, hundreds of people, and so, like, oh my God, it was an amazing journey. Thank you, Lon, for taking the time, having so much capacity to be able to share all of this information. And we love to hear more about more of your story. Thank you for being a longtime friend, and thank you for joining us today.
No, and vice versa. Thank you for even thinking of me. This is an illustrious group here. I don't feel I'm worthy enough to discuss my business books. I should be more altruistic. I mean, it's been a big wake-up call for me this morning to maybe refocus a little bit.
Awesome.
Wow.
No, why do you say that? Because isn't that true though? A lot of your inspiration has been getting people to use technology to improve their life. I mean, was that in your mind when you were writing these books?
Yeah, honestly, all kidding aside, it really was. I realized that people could benefit by the different types of technology, going all the way back to the very first computers. When people were afraid of computers, they didn't know whether they should buy one for their business or their home. Back in the mid 80s, I was teaching people to not be afraid. And I would walk in with a computer and say, here's the computer. And I'd let it smash onto the concrete floor. And I said, see, you were always in control. Don't be afraid of it. And people would then laugh and embrace computer technology. And then that was the very beginning of the journey. Every time there was a new technology out, people would be intimidated. Of course they are, because it's complicated and you don't understand it. It's the shadows in the night and the noises in the closet. But once you turn on the light, you see, no, that's your hoodie. It's just moving around because of the windows open. And so, yeah, that's really true. Whether it's social media or marketing or innovative thinking or my most recent subject matter, I call it the 4 acronyms of the apocalypse, playing up on the fact that everybody's afraid of it. That's AI, AR, VR, and IoT. Those 4 acronyms you have to be more aware of. It's going to affect our lives even more than social media did. And that's hard to believe. It sounds like hyperbole, but those 4 acronyms are the most important technologies we need to be aware of. And most people are afraid or don't understand what all 4 of those are. So I get the biggest rush out of taking a room full of people that are so inquisitive and so fearful. And then within just a few minutes, it's like, oh, well, is that all there is to it? Well, I could do that. And then watching them grow using these technologies. And yeah, that's why the Social Media Bible was 800 pages, because I talked about every piece of technology that was available at the time. So whatever you had a problem with or wanted to know more about, you could go to that particular chapter and learn everything there was to know about it. So yeah, there really is an altruistic side. And that's what motivates me more than anything is helping people.
I presume because you've been so prolific that typewriter behind you is probably not a key part of your arsenal, that there are better technologies available for you to get, from your brain out to a printed word or online word.
Hey, don't make fun of that. It doesn't require any batteries. It prints in 2 different colors. It's got a built-in printer. I mean,
pretty amazing. What is your process? How do you get, formulate these ideas? Where do you document all of these ideas? Do you have a list somewhere where, like, my next 50 books or something? And then how do you actually get to the point where you're getting stuff out on a regular basis? How do you do that?
yeah, it's basically when I have something to say, and obviously I can't shut up because I have a lot to say. So I'm constantly watching and looking for trends. And again, 5 years ago, I told everybody about AI, that it was coming. And everybody's like, yeah, I've heard about that, but that's not going to affect me. And now we're seeing it with Chat GPT and Dolly 2 and some of the stuff that we've all been playing with. It is affecting us, and it's going to affect us in very profound ways. So 5 years ago, nobody cared about it, but I knew that I better learn about it, because sooner or later people are eventually, just like social media and computers, they were going to start asking the questions, how is this going to affect me? And we're just at that stage right now with artificial intelligence. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and Internet of Things are still a couple of years out before we start asking questions about that. So really the inspiration has been, for me, curiosity, learning whatever the newest technology is and how it's going to affect us, all of us individually and as a group and as corporations, as salespeople, marketing people, and just communicating with other people. I want to know what that is, and I want to understand it better than anybody, so that when I get the opportunity to help and teach, I can do that. And then eventually, and the funny thing is, it always starts out as a PowerPoint presentation. Every single book I've ever done, I deliberately create a PowerPoint presentation with 21 to 23 slides. I title the slides. I put 3 to 5 bullets on each, just like you're supposed to. And guess what? That's 21 chapters. Those are your all your chapter headings and the subheadings. And all I got to do is take each of the bullet points and expand it out to a half a page. And I got myself an 800-page book. So for me, it's fairly simple. It's just a process that you have to go through.
Amazing. What do you think of that, Dana? Is that a process that you could live with?
It's a process I can live with. I don't know I'll come up with 800 pages. I think I would make them more bite-sized. But when you were talking about AI, VR, and so forth, an organization that I work for here in Atlanta just rolled out the first virtual reality gaming teaching component for vaccines, and we're the only organization that has it. And then this is Science Atlanta, 2 weeks, 2 weeks of Science Atlanta here. So there are going to be various things throughout the city. And on Saturday, the 25th of this month, we'll be in collaboration with Emory University and UGA, and they're going to add the asthma component. In other words, what's a good way to get people engaged? And I know that Manoj and then Necole and then Lon was talking about these, but it's really finding the best ways that people learn. And so gaming is it. So they're incorporating that. And when you can get healthcare, education, and resources through a little headset, I have it here in the car because I'll be demonstrating it today. Yeah, but your process, I think I would come up with maybe a 150, 200-page book. I'm not sure it'll be 800, okay. But I've done a novel, and I just appreciate what you're doing and would really like to learn more from you.
Well, that was an unusual case, but I think the basic idea of 20 to 21 chapters. What is the ideal length of a book these days? And then how many pages do you put in illustrations in there? I'd love to hear from each of you on that. What do you think, Dana? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, it really depends. If you're doing a novel, the minimum requirements for that is 50,000 words. And so if you're doing, I have my book, I have Nicole's book, I have another person's book here in the car. And so these books average about 100 pages, and you look at the trim size. So it depends if you're also including illustrations. I know one of my authors in our 90 Days to Manuscript, their book is going to include illustrations, which would take it out a little bit more than maybe 150 pages. So it's going to vary. And then, of course, if you're doing a textbook, something for curricular, I'm sure Gloria can speak to that too.
Okay. Lon, what do you think? I mean, the Social Media Bible was an unusual case, right? That you wanted to cover all of these things, and you did so many interviews, and it was a different case. But for a normal type of book, like your next books, what kind of length would you normally recommend?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The first one, that was going to be not only a pop culture book, because everyone was asking the question, what is social media? But the intent also is to turn it into a textbook. And even though the first edition came out 10 years ago, and the subsequent 3 editions after that, it's still being used as a textbook in universities all over the world. So that was the intent of all this historical data in there. Yeah,
It was called the Bible for a reason, right?
Yeah. And some people very few people, but some people questioned, the religious connotation of it. But if you look at the Greek translation of the word Bible, it just means collection of books. And that's what it was. Each one was an individual collection on a different subject, all put together into one Bible. So yeah, after that, the formula is 45 to 48. It used to be 45 to 48,000 words for a typical business book, 250 pages with a trim size of 6 by 12 or 6 by 9, 6 by 12, typical business book. But that has changed really significantly. So over the years, as our attention span has actually and truthfully have dropped below that of a goldfish, the books have to become smaller and smaller. So that's exactly what happened with each of my books. Some of the business books are so concise and so dense with information, it takes only an hour to read the entire thing, and there's everything that you need to know on that subject. So it's in between there. 25,000 words, I'd say now for a typical business book would make the most sense.
Wow. Necole, what's your reaction to that, and what do you think?
I totally agree with Lon about textbooks, those, because I have, been on compilation of textbooks for different universities. So those are a whole different animal. And most of us who are out here indie publishing are not writing those massive volumes of work. So for indie publishers, the sweet spot is probably 150 to 200 pages in a book, which is nice and short enough for someone to read while they're, in between, plane rides or whether on vacation, so they're not to feel so overwhelmed, especially if it's not a particular novel. Then it's just something, if it's autobiographical or if it's something that's chronicling a journey, about 150 to 200 pages.
Okay. Manoj, did you have a consideration of this when you were writing the book and finishing it up?
Yes, as Lon and the other speakers mentioned, so I tried to keep it as the attention span is getting, less and less, like you mentioned, less than a goldfish. So in my own book, I followed the practice of keeping it about 150 pages and no illustration, nothing. There's just one quote on each chapter, 19 chapters, and each chapter about 4 to 5 pages with the key takeaways. So I think summarizing the chapter, and in my case, it's more of a self-help book also. And so one can use the chapter, again, it could be a read within 1 to 2 hours, you can knock it off. And it's a handbook which you can carry. So if you want to hear the power of, or how to remember names, you can just go to the chapter, refer it, read the 4 pages, and then, use it some other time. So to answer your question, I've kept it, and I guess with less is more in today's time, and with the attention deficit kind of things and things going on, I guess I would stick to less than 200.
Okay. I see Lanie Denslow in the audience, and I know Lanie's book, Working with Americans, that's largely a textbook too. So this was a consideration for you and your co-author on that too, right? You had to have it lengthy enough to be a text, to be a resource, but you didn't want it too long. What are your perspectives on book length? Oh, you're on mute, Lanie.
I'm not
All right.
now. I did it. Actually, we never thought about it as directly as a textbook, but it did become a supplemental reading in a number of international business classes. And we set it up with the idea that each chapter was a standalone, so people could dip into what was interesting to them without feeling like you had to read the rest of the book to understand what we were talking about. And I think that made a difference in people using it, because they could just pick up at any place in the book.
Fantastic. I'm going to open it up for questions, but before I do that, I'd like to go to Dwayne Canova. Dwayne has, similar to Lon, many books, and I'm sure you guys know each other. You must. I wanted to have have Dwayne give us an update on your latest book and what's going on, and book size and length is something that you think about a lot as well, because you have so many books.
Yes, I just loved all the comments and inputs here, just in agreement. So I would just echo significant, agreement with everyone. And I go for between 20,000 and 25,000 books. I break it up with a few quotes here and there because it gives people a chance to pause and kind of reflect, and use the quotes as openings. And of course, Gloria has done that well with her books as well. The other thing is that I think for me I just want to, if you don't mind, just a minute or so on Lon's input on technology. I started teaching coding in 1967 when it was punch cards and printouts. And so I've been involved with it from the very beginning, and I haven't used ChatGPT to write an article since yesterday for me. So I want you to know that this whole AI world and where this is going and the use of technology has been a distinguishing piece for me in my entire career, this ability to use technology. And I saw Mr. Dowdell, I saw that he's involved with agriculture. I come from a little town of 2,000 people in a farming community, and my undergraduate work was agronomy, plant science, farming, because I thought you'll go back and be a farmer. So here I am writing books about C-suites and boards, because that's my focus. My passion is around C-suites and boards, because these two groups have more impact on companies than any other teams in the organization. And they are almost without inputs, in a sense, if you will. If you listen to our our inputs here today, they're much for the people who are, I'm going to call it, in the operations management, and everything that here would work for the leadership people as well. But they're almost isolated in a sense. And yet the impact of them throughout the organization is so dramatic. And so that's really where I'm focused, and just doing really a new revision now of the book, Exceptional Executive Teams, because how do we get exceptional executive teams in these organizations is a key piece. And we have a new collaboration app just for C-suites and for boards. So those are the principal outputs coming shortly.
Got it. So many of all of you's targets are busy executives, busy people. And so this question, I think, is really important. How do you give them the opportunity to get through the information so they can absorb it? So these are really key questions. I see Todd Cornell in the audience as well. And when I think, Todd, about you and your books and the bridge between one culture and another, the time frame seems longer. That that when you're writing, that you're recognizing that people are probably getting a pot of tea brewed and sitting down and spending a good amount of time in front of a fire, maybe, and really absorbing a lot of this. Am I wrong? Or when you write, are you having a different perspective than what's been explained here already? Todd, are you available to chat?
I am. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't ask ahead of time. Are you okay just to say a couple words?
Sure. Yeah. That's a hard thing for me to answer, because there's so much mixed emotion in my whole, like you're saying, cross-cultural experience. And with the basic emotion that we have in the country today, I think that really is a quagmire for me, because finding a balance, a sense of balance in my own mind and heart around the attitudes of so many people who really don't understand what they're talking about, or are doing things for wrong reasons, saying the basic, I mean, everybody basically right now is down on China, and that's a really hard thing to try and change. And no matter my having lived in the country for over 20 years, speaking the language fluently, you know, I'm deemed like brainwashed or crazy or whatever, because I bring out ideas and suggestions for improving the relationships rather than making them more challenged. And I just feel that our approach is just very wrong. And I think that goes against everything that is called diplomacy. But I think that's just where we are as a country. I think we're at a place now where there's so much emotion, and we have to have an enemy. And right now that enemy is sadly China, because we, along with the rest of the Western world, gave China the opportunity, and they took it and they did something with it. And I think that bothers us. And so I think once we can get beyond our own sense of, you know, hey, we're the most important, look at me over here, sort of an attitude, I think it's going to be really difficult for us to have any change. So when I want to write, when I want to express myself, it's difficult, because I know that I'm going to have a lot of people who don't agree with me, but yet they don't really necessarily understand the reality. So,
well, isn't that the
asked
same
for,
problem? Isn't that the same issue or problem that everybody faces, whatever the topic is? So Lon saw that technology was being derided and people didn't really appreciate it, and he wrote around. He basically said, look, you know, technology is usable, and yeah, throw the computer on the ground. I wonder how many computers you went through, Lon, to be able to do that demonstration. You probably had same one, right, that you kept throwing on the ground. But
no, I agree.
The issue is the same, right? People hated technology and thought it was ridiculous, and yet he found a way to cut through. Nicole's doing the same way of getting people to be able to get to the next level for their business. And Manoj is saying, look, you know, this nonsense about connecting in LinkedIn, and now you've got a 5-page, here's where I want you to send the money, and I don't even know you. I mean, that's not good. And we could get frustrated by that, but he didn't. He said, hey, there's a better way, and he wrote about it. And so you've really just got the same issue, right? Is you've got to find your target client, your target person, and just be real and reasonable about it, as you have been in your other books. And we're not going to change the world. One of my favorite quotes is a book. There was a Stuart Smalley movie. He was a character in Saturday Night Live, and there was a movie that was one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of my favorite quotes out of that was, you know, instead of carpeting the world, wear a pair of slippers. And that actually is a quote that I use almost every day, because I get frustrated like you, that people are like, oh my God, the world has gone mad. And the world has gone mad, but we can't carpet it. We can't carpet over those knuckleheads, but we can wear slippers and work with the people that can get it, right? And so I don't know. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir. You get all of that, but I'm just trying to get the synergy between what you're doing, which is really good work. Understand another culture, cut through the clutter of the nonsense, but recognize the value of this culture, just like I am with Japan, and to a large extent I am with China and every culture, understanding it and forget the nonsense. I'm curious how authors, how do you respond to this, and how much, Necole, do you think about this in terms of your mission and how you want to evolve people's minds? You can't change everybody, but you can change certain people. So undoubtedly, you're thinking of those people when you write, right?
And here's the thing about that. I just got back from 13 days in the Sahara and in Morocco in the south of Spain with a group of women who don't look like me, who don't come from similar backgrounds as I do, in an interfaith group of women who are Baha'i, who are Muslim, who are Jewish, and who are Christian. And it's really about taking my self-limiting beliefs, because as we all know, we hang around people and we feel most comfortable around people who look most like we do. And we're in friendships with people who look and think most like we do. And in order to enhance those friendships and relationships, there was someone in the group about judgment, a barrier to creating more human connection. And yes, it is. We, judge on a variety of levels. And part of me becoming part of this interfaith group was overcoming some of those self-limiting beliefs, which are perceptions about beliefs we have about ourselves and in our immediate world around us. And we break those down by interacting with individuals who don't necessarily come from the same background as we do.
Very, very well said.
I find that really true. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I face is that I feel more comfortable with people who are not like me than I do with people who are like me. And that, I think, is a big challenge for me.
Well, thank you for sharing. Roberto?
So interesting. I tell you, I'm fascinated by each one. I mean, technology, humanity, relationships. The thing that when I I got old, right? We all get old. And I was actually 80 years old last October. So when I started looking behind in my life, and I said, how did I spend my life? And how did I start? And where I'm today? And I started as an engineer. Then I became an applied physicist, a scientist. Then I got involved in MBA, teaching a professor at university. Then I opened up my own company. And today, my love is really human behaviors. What do people do and how they do it? In fact, when Necole was talking about relationships, one of the things we found, we trained about 90,000 people in about 30 years. We found out one of the things that literally kills relationships is judgment. And so the question is, I was going to ask her, how did judgment had a role in that particular fact of ending a relationship? So the end of the story is actually, we wrote a book, Victoria and I, out of these 80,000, 90,000 people we trained, and it's really turned to be the 13 rules of the game of life. And I'm thinking, gee, if I had these rules when I was 18, where would I be today? So to me, it's fascinating, this meaning, Doug, what you do with everybody writes, the sharing and the making the difference in the life of people. What Lon is saying, and Lon, what I'm working with a client right now is, instead of e-commerce, it's called v-commerce, whereby you actually enter a store virtually, you buy the clothing, you select the pocketbook, the purse, and the shoes, and you actually have a model walking up to what you selected to actually have a look at it. The world of the future is going to change so much. It's just incredible. Anyway, Doug, thank you so much, and to everybody. And
thank you, Doug and Gloria.
Thank you. Do next week.
And Cesar.
Oh, our pleasure. I think we're getting to the end here. And so, Lon, did you want to make any final comment before we close? And I'm going to go to Alex Devereaux to say a few words about next month as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you for everybody here today. I've learned a lot. I've been inspired by every single person here. I really have. And Doug, Gloria, Cesar, I mean, you guys are doing a great job with these presentations, and I'm proud to be part of it. So yeah, thank you. And to just answer that last question, I think as authors, it's our job to educate. So whatever the subject matter is, whether it's China or taking it, making relationships first, I mean, it's our job to teach people what insights we've learned. And sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it takes 850 pages.
Manoj, your final comments, and that whole issue of you can't change everybody, right? So how do you live with that the fact that you can impact some people, but you can't impact others? How frustrating is that? Or do you just find a way to live with that?
Yeah, you touched upon a raw chord. I can talk on this subject for a long time, but in the interest of time, yeah, so I was just sharing with my daughters that, there are times when you keep giving, and I also call it a term use and throw. So there are many people who will use you as a particular time and then not even pick up your call when you need them. But I think, as Lon mentioned, from an author, then because if we have centered from inside and we have changed our lens, it doesn't matter. That's what we don't want to become. In fact, every time now, and I'll just quickly add one more thing. After my authorship, I have actually become more of a student of life and observing every relationship, nature, situation I get into, and watch it and observe it, and hopefully will come out in the next book where I feel is what one should do and what one shouldn't do. And that's the same thing which we have to keep spreading kindness, keep helping people. I call it EQ, have empathy, the EQ quotient beside the digital and everything else. And if we keep doing our best, and I want the kind of people, and that leads to happiness, satisfaction, etc., etc. So those who are lucky will crack the code, will realize that, and be part of what the journey is.
Fantastic. Alex Devereaux is our moderator next month. Alex, we've got some really great speakers coming up. Can you just quickly share, and then we'll have Gloria make a final comment?
Well, I'd like to comment about today's session first. And that is, this was just an amalgamation of all of these collective mindsets and experiences that talks about what? Humans and technology. Back in the late 80s, there was someone who spoke, John Nesbitt. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the author. He wrote a book on high touch, high tech. And so what we're talking about here, from dropping that computer on the floor as Lon did, saying this is, this is the hard side. The soft side is here. And of course, all the other authors have spoken about, the need. And Todd, you made reference to the challenge with China. I understand what you're saying and can appreciate it. My second book was on, thriving, or dying with respect to DEI with companies in general. So Dwayne, you talk about the C-suite. The C-suite is where all those issues need to be resolved more constructively. And so what I did was I was able to identify the relationship with respect to it being unconditional, which is what Necole made reference to with her group. That unconditional acceptance is kind of unique and is it's sort of like evasive with humans, because it requires you to make that transition in a way that it's almost a parapsychological response to a situation and being able to move past that. So speaking about it, all the things that we talked about here are just great. And so now transitioning into my month, next month, we have even more fun, because we have Dr. Professor Ansis, who's going to talk about his book and about the games of life in his story with his wife, Victoria. Then we also have, we have Kathy Fayak. She's going to talk about, authoring business books. So Lon, we got this micro version, if you will, of the book, and so we need the expertise of authors who can help us, and of course, maybe even ChatGPT for the matter, to get us connected. And then of course, we also have an interesting speaker, Gabor Hulk. He does so much work with expats in China, and so Todd, you would probably have a really good connection with him, because he's dealing with some of the challenges with expats from different countries, all in China, and dealing with this whole transition in terms of, what's happening, to be or not to be in war. That is the question, is what we're all faced with right now. So unconditional acceptance is a challenge for all of us, and that's where the cultural aspect of it that becomes this interesting challenge, because we haven't been taught how to effectively accept other cultures. That's what I discovered. And so in the corporate environment is what I talk about. I look at it with respect to performance. So I just finished my third book, and that's focused on leading and thriving. And the core of that has to do with cultural acceptance.
Yeah.
It's about people again.
And the book that Cesar and I are writing, Global is Good, is built off of proximity bias, that anything outside of within a few feet of us, we're biased against, no matter what it is, whether it's Chinese culture, Japanese culture, something new, whatever it is. You know, people don't want to really worry about it, or they have some negative comment about it. And that's not good fundamentally, and that's why our book is called Global is Good, you know. And so I think we're all probably on the same page. I thank you, Alex. We look forward to that program next month. I screwed up because I forgot to get to Lanie Denslow. If you don't mind, if you could just hold on for a couple more minutes. Lanie has a book review, and then we'll go to Gloria. Lanie, you have a book review, and I don't remember which book it is, but tell us more about one of our Global Chamber authors, and you have a review on it. Is Lanie still there? Oh.
Still here, and I'm now unmuted. So,
Oh, yay.
okay. So this is the book. I hope you can see it. This is our very own Gloria Peterson book. The fifth book that she's written. She is a prolific author, and with this book, she took a leap in a new direction. Those of you on this call are familiar with Gloria's books, and look, Dwayne's holding up the new book too. I think so. Gloria's original books, her first four, have been about how we engage with each other in all different ways in a business setting. This book is how to engage with yourself. It is, Necole, it's a book for those who want to journal. And its title, Mindfulness in Health Watch, captures what she does in this book. It's about developing mindfulness and your awareness of yourself, both in a mental way and in a physical way. So Gloria talks about that there are 7 elements of mindfulness: intention, gratitude, affirmation, visualization, kindness, wisdom, and spirituality. And interestingly, 7 different elements, one for each day of the week. So Gloria has set this journal up so to make it so easy for people who may not be familiar with journaling, aren't sure what to do. And it's set up so that every day of the week, it prompts the user to think about one of those 7 elements. But it isn't just mindfulness. Remember, this is about health too. So every day there's a spot here to note some things about how many steps you've done, what great things you ate, what calories you burned. Always a balance between the internal philosophy and the external taking care of your body. And every week begins with a quote. And if you picked up the journal and looked at the quote that begins this week, it says, meditation is focused thinking. Make it positive thinking. Gloria says soon, after you focus on all these elements of mindfulness, this will be part of your day and you will accomplish more than you ever thought possible. And it isn't just that she takes us through the year week by week. At the end, she gives us some resources, books to read, many of them written by those of us who are on this call today and other global authors, and YouTube videos that you can watch to continue the journey of mindfulness and watching your health. And I would say that for all of us, Gloria, the one thing we would request is that there is a 2020 of this book. So I encourage all of you to pick this up, explore it, and let it lead you to doing more than you previously thought possible. And for this group, that's kind of crazy to even think, but Gloria's got us on the path. Thank you very much. Thanks for the book, Gloria. Thanks, Doug, for making the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Lanie. Gloria, you've got the stage to wrap us up. Congratulations on the book. How did today go? Any comments or thoughts? Anything about the book and anything else that we should know?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lanie. I wish I had recorded everything you said.
But we'll have a
But,
recording.
no.
We'll have that.
Thank you very much. I think this was a very enlightening day. These author programs each month is keep getting better and better. I think mostly I am grateful that they're recorded because we can go back and re-listen. And when you re-listen, you catch something you didn't think you caught before. You know why? Because you're in the chat kind of typing in some information. And when you do that, you miss something. So, because I've done that. But anyway, regarding the book, it's all about me walking my talk and sharing it. And that's really what that book's all about. And yes, I will probably try to do a next edition. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month. And in between now and then, we've got a gazillion things that we're doing, including the Global Chamber Global Excellence Awards next Tuesday. Watch in the next few days and on Monday's newsletter with all of the winners. Join us to celebrate global excellence with the Global 50. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Lon. Thanks, Necole.